Well, shalom, shalom, shalom. It's good to see you. Welcome to the Bible study on the book of Judges. We're going to be going over chapter 4. And so just a kind of little preliminary things. Again, we're kind of using some commentaries just to help guide us. We have the Ariel's commentary on the book of Judges as well as the book of Ruth. I'm going to show you another reference here in just a little bit when I share my screen, but it's Constable's Notes, and then also the International Alliance of Messianic Congregations and Synagogues has a yeshiva classes that you can take in addition to this study or any other studies that you may be doing. Now, we are a Messianic congregation through Ohav Shalom Messianic Congregation. We have to make sure that we have our study of Israel right. So here's a great book that goes over all types of theology as it relates to Israel and people's belief system. So we want to make sure that we have our Israelology and what God's promises to the Israel people are, and that book covers it. Another one, we want to watch out for tribalism, especially in the book of Judges. Here's a great book, a very good read from Dr. Victor Davis Hanson on tribalism as it relates to the United States. And then we can readily apply that to us as believers in Messiah, that we have to watch out for tribal Christianity, because when we just start getting too tribal, we drift away, as the Israelites did, from that Mosaic covenant. Of course, our law is the law of Christ. So we want to make sure we're focusing on Christ and not becoming tribal with our own belief systems. That's going to help tear us apart as the body of Messiah. All right, so let me share my screen here. I want to go over a couple other preliminary things here before we get started. All right, so checking out. All right, so here is the Constable's Notes. So if you go to sunlight.com, Constable Notes, and you can see here that he has all kinds of different books that are absolutely free that you can check out. And he's done some great research there that's available to you at no charge. Of course, I'm using the Blue Letter Bible, and so there's a lot of commentaries there. Again, absolutely free. And then there's also the International Alliance of Messianic Congregations and Synagogues. And so then they have their yeshiva classes. And so here's their yeshiva classes. They have a whole bunch there. There is a nominal fee for that, but they're great, great videos that you could look at. Also, if you're looking for a Messianic congregation in your region, there is also a link there to help find a Messianic congregation in your area. All right, well, let's get started. But before we do, we want to make sure that we go ahead and pray and ask for God to open up our hearts and our minds to hear what he has to say today. So, Father, we just thank you for this time together. We just ask for these words that you've put here in the book of Judges to write up on our heart and help them apply into our lives. And we just thank you for this time together. In Yeshua's mighty name, amen. All right. So again, just some couple preliminary things here. All right. So remember, on the book of Judges, what we have to remember here is that they're going through cycles of the 5 R's. Okay. So their rest, that means they're obedient to the Lord. Then as soon as that deliverer or that judge dies, they start rebelling, going away from the law, and they become disobedient to God. They were amalgamating with the Canaanites. They were adopting foreign gods and not following them. And so they rebelled against the Lord. Well, then the Lord would bring divine retribution. So they were in subjugation to their enemies, Moabites, Amalekites, Canaanites, Philistines, etc. And then after that, they cried out, they kvetched, they complained to the Lord, and the Lord would raise up a deliverer, and then they would be restored. Soon as that deliverer passed away, rebellion came in again, and the cycle repeats itself. So we're going to be going over those cycles here throughout the book of Judges. Again, they were resulting to tribalism. After Joshua died, you guys need to go out, go to the areas for your tribes. Okay, do what the Mosaic covenant says. That's the binding of all the 12 tribes. But what did they do? They did the opposite. They started adapting to the other Canaanites that are in the area, adapting to their gods, marrying their women, men, etc. And so they got themselves in a hot mess. Okay, so that is that tribalism. Here's the video link. I'm sorry. If you go to YouTube and you want a condensed version of the Dying Citizen, You can go to YouTube, type in Dr. Victor Davis Hanson, and just type in tribalism, and you get a good idea of what tribalism is about. And then you can apply it to your life as a believer in Yeshua as well. Okay, let's go ahead and go on with the study. And again, we want to take into consider of Israelology. Yes, they were disobedient as part of the Mosaic covenant. Obedience was part of their requirement to stay in the land. But that does not negate the Abrahamic covenant, which is unconditional covenant. That means that promise is forever to Abraham. It also went to Isaac and to Jacob and his generations. Okay, so that land does belong to Israel. It's unconditional. Despite their disobedience, God's promise is going to hold true. So we want to keep that in mind as well. All right, let's jump into the word here. Judges chapter 4, and we're going to go ahead and read verse 1. Whoops, sorry about that. When Ehud was dead, the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord. Okay, so here we are. Okay, they had that rest, and as soon as Ehud passed away, okay, they did evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, the king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. The commander of his army was Sisera, who dwelt in Harosheth Hagoyim, right? Hagoyim, Goy, Gentiles, foreign nations. Im makes it plural, so they're dwelling with foreign nations there. And the children of Israel cried out to the Lord, for Jabin had 900 chariots of iron, and for 20 years he had harshly oppressed the children of Israel. So remember in the 5 R's, when you go against the Lord, right, he's going to bring someone along and put you in subjugation to them. And so here we have Jabin, the king of the Canaanites. We have his commander Sisera, who is going to put these guys under subjugation for 20 years. Why? They had military advantage. They had these 900 chariots of iron that they could oppress the Israelites with. All right, verse 4. Now Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel at that time. And she would sit under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the mountains of Ephraim. And the children of Israel came up to her for judgment. So apparently, this Deborah is very well known. She had this place where she always was. They called it the palm tree of Deborah. And so they would come up there and ask her. She was a prophetess, so she had direct connection and asking for God's will in their life. Okay, so let's read on here in verse 6. Then she sent and called for Barak, the son of Abinoam, from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, has not the Lord God of Israel commanded, go and deploy troops at Mount Tabor? Take with you 10,000 men of the sons of Naphtali and of the sons of Zebulun. All right, so these are the tribes of Jacob. So she's saying, hey, hasn't God told you to do this? He's commanded you to deploy troops to Mount Tabor. I'll have a picture of that here in just a little bit. With you 10,000 men of the sons of Naphtali and the sons of Zebulun. Okay. And against you I will deploy Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his multitude at the river Kishon, and I will deliver you into your hand. And Barak said, hey, if you go with me, then I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go. Hey, what he's asking her is, hey, I need to know that God's hand is in this. I want you to go with me. You're a prophetess. I want you to go with me. All right. So she says here in verse 9, I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, there will be no glory for you in the journey you are taking, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman. Then Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh. All right, let me just put a little context here so we can have some visuals here. Again, Joshua is passed. Whoops, sorry, right here. Joshua is passed away, and then they're sending these people out to go into this area to take over Jabin and fight for Sisera. And I got a little map here. Sisera has these chariots of iron, and they're supposed to go up to Upper Galilee here. All right, so here's Mount Tabor. Here's the Sea of Galilee. Here's Kadesh Naphtali in this area here. So this is the area that they're going to be fighting. All right, so let's kind of go to this next slide here. There's Mount Tabor. Here's the Valley of Jezreel. And so we're seeing where this battle is going to take place. Again, here's the Sea of Galilee over here. Let me bring that up in a slideshow. Here's the Sea of Galilee over here. Here's Mount Tabor, okay, and here's where they're going to clash. Here's that Kishon River is running right through here, okay? All right, so now we kind of get an area where we are looking at. All right, so Barak said, if you go, Deborah, I'm going to go. He wants to know that God's hand is in this, wants Deborah to go along. So she said, yes, I'll go with you, and the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman. Then Deborah rose and went with Barak to Kadesh. And Barak called Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh. He went up with 10,000 men under his command, and Deborah went with him. Now Heber the Kenite of the children of Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses, had separated himself from the Kenites and pitched his tent near the terebinth tree of Zaniah. All right, so what's going on with this Heber thing? All right, so up there, Canaanites, they are supposed to, they're kind of siding with Sisera, right? So they're kind of watching out what's going on with Barak and Deborah. They're keeping an eyeball on it, and they're going out and ratting them out to Sisera to see what's going on there. All right, so Sisera now he's going to deploy his troops, and they're going to go out and they are going to get Barak as well as the people of Zebulun and Naphtali. All right, let's pick it up here in verse 12. Okay, verse 12. And they reported to Sisera that Barak the son of Abinoam had gone up to Mount Tabor. So Sisera gathered together all his chariots, 900 chariots of iron, and all the people who were with him from Harosheth Hagoyim to the river of Kishon. All right, let's just go back and get a picture of it in our video here. All right, again, here's this river of Kishon. And then here we are. We're kind of going to meet in this area right here. Again, Sea of Galilee's over here. Here's Mount Tabor. And so they're going to meet right here. Okay, let's go back into our word. All right, so verse 14, then Deborah said to Barak, up, for this is the day in which the Lord has delivered Sisera into your hand. Has not the Lord gone out before you? So Barak went down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 men following him. And the Lord routed Sisera and all his chariots and all his army with the edge of the sword before Barak. And Sisera alighted from his chariot and fled away on foot. But Barak pursued the chariots and the army as far as Harosheth Hagoyim. And all the army of Sisera fell by the edge of the sword. Not a man was left. However, Sisera had fled away on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, for there was peace between Jabin king of Hazor and the house of Heber the Kenite. And Jael went out to meet Sisera and said to him, turn aside, my lord, turn aside to me, do not fear. And when he had turned aside with her into the tent, she covered him with a blanket. Then he said to her, please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty. So she opened up a jug of milk, gave him a drink, and covered him. And he said to her, stand at the door of tent, and if any man comes and inquires of you and says, is there any man here? You shall say no. All right, so here's a question. Did Jael trust Sisera? Did Jael trust Sisera? The answer would be no. She had him pegged from the beginning, right? Nope. All right, little humor there. All right, so then Jael, Heber's wife, took a tent peg and took a hammer in her hand and went softly to him and drove the peg into his temple, and it went down into the ground, for he was fast asleep and weary, so he died. So remember, the Kenites were a nomadic tribe, so they're traveling around. They're used to setting up these tents. The women used to set them up. All right, so driving these long stakes, they said they were about 18 inches long, they're about a cubit, and you got to secure them from the wind, so you got to hit them really hard. So she was able to pound that stake through Sisera's head, right there through the temple, and there he was, deader than a doornail, at the hands of Jael. All right, so then when Barak pursued Sisera, Jael came out to meet him and said to him, "Come, I will show you the man whom you seek." And when he went into the tent, there lay Sisera dead with a peg in his temple. So on that day, God subdued Jabin, king of Canaan, in the presence of the children of Israel, and the hand of the children of Israel grew stronger and stronger against Jabin, the king of Canaan, until they had destroyed Jabin, the king of Canaan. All right, so let's kind of review before we have our quiz. All right, so here we have, all right, so here's the battle. Back up here a little bit. All right, so Canaanites, remember Moses' wife was from the Kenites, and so they were typically pro-Israel, but Heber, he separated himself and he became pro-Canaanite. Canaanite. All right, so he's watching Barak and Deborah as they're moving right to this place so they can fight Sisera. Well, here they clash. Here's that river Kishon, and some expositors say that the God intervened. He overflowed the banks of the Kishon River, became all muddy, and so these 900 chariots of iron, they get stuck in the mud. And so now here, Naphtali, that's up in this region here, Zebulun, same area in this region, come down and they conquer Jabin and his men. So Sisera, he goes to the tent Jael. Remember, these Kenites, they're friend with them. They're pro-Canaanite. So yeah, he felt perfectly comfortable going into this tent and hiding. However, not all of them were friendly towards the Canaanites. Obviously, Jael wasn't. Drove a tent stake right through his head. And so they have lasting peace in that area. All right, so yeah, they grew stronger and stronger. Rather than being severely oppressed, okay, now they're growing stronger and stronger. They were delivered by Barak. Deborah was the prophetess who helped guide them, letting know God's hand is in this. All right, let's check out our quiz. All right, what was the name of the king of Canaan who oppressed the Israelites? What was the name of the king of the Canaanites who oppressed the Israelites? If you answered Jabin, you are correct. Jabin is the correct answer. Next question. How long did Jabin harshly oppress the children of Israel? How long did he put them down? How long were they oppressed? Pause it if you don't know. Look it up in your chapter 4. You already know 20 years of oppression. 20 years of oppression. Next question. Who was the prophetess and judge who called on Barak to fight against Sisera? If you said Deborah, that is correct. Sat there at the palm of Deborah and people would come up to her. How many chariots of iron did Sisera have? How many chariots of iron? And they got stuck in the mud. They had 900 chariots of iron. 900 chariots of iron. All right, next question. Again, you can pause it if you're looking up these answers. Where did Deborah tell Barak to deploy his troops? Where did Deborah tell Barak to deploy his troops? Little tougher question here. If you said Mount Tabor, you are correct. Mount Tabor. What was Barak's condition for going to battle? He would only go if Deborah went with him, right? He would only go. Deborah was a prophetess. He wanted to make sure that Deborah and God's hand were in this. All right, next question. Who was Jael's husband? Who was Jael's husband? Remember these Kenites, that was Moses' wife was a Kenite. However, they decided to go with the side of the Canaanites. Her husband was Heber. Heber was Jael's husband. She had Sisera pegged from the beginning. All right, I like that joke, sorry. What did Jael offer Sisera to drink? He wanted water, but she said, you know what? Let me give you a glass of warm milk, put you to sleep so I could put that peg right through your temple. Sisera. All right. All right, how did she kill Sisera? She drove that tin peg right through his temple. And then what was the result of the battle of Sisera's death? The hand of Israelites grew stronger and stronger against Jabin until they destroyed them. All right, that's the end of our quiz. I hope you did well on it. And thank you for joining us on chapter 4. Remember to look towards God. He solves all the problems, and that allows us to work our things out with man on the horizontal. Thank you for joining our Bible study. Look forward to seeing you for chapter 5. Again, get some people together, have a little oneg, have some fellowship, have a Bible study, and look towards the word. And don't forget your Israelology. They're an important part of these end times that we're facing right now. Shalom. God bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and give you peace. May he give you shalom.